Fraymakers on launch was a dumpster fire, straight up. The game just wasn't in a good spot. And it's crazy to think it's already been 6 months. And I remember back then telling people, hey, wait 6 months, see what happens, and come back to the game. Well, we got 2 new assists. So, as you can expect, the game is basically dead. I mean, it's not dead, like quote-unquote, like no players play it, but it's basically in a hospital bed. The community has become like, I don't even, like 1/10 of the size it was. And unfortunately, the reputation of Fraymakers has been damaged pretty badly since launch. I remember back in 2020 seeing the OG trailer and thinking to myself, this is going to be the best game of all time. And now, since I was a tester, I've basically been playing the game for a full year, and it still feels like we are so far away from that game that we all wanted to play. Admittedly, it is nearly impossible to live up to their own expectations, but we can be honest. The game right now feels like it's lacking so much important content. And I already know what you're gonna comment. But Bowler, it's an early access. And yes, I am aware it's early access, and I do know that games get better over time. In fact, Super Smash Bros. 2 is probably one of the best examples of that. I don't know if they were inspired by the fact that the first build for that game also had only 4 characters, but yeah, I do think, in fact, since Super Smash Bros. 2 kind of had this same comeback story, we could definitely see a similar thing happen to Fraymakers. Which is why, and you can call it cope, I do still believe in Fraymakers. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually still do believe in the project, even though it's definitely not doing the best right now. From what we've heard from the devs, the development pace has been doing a lot better recently, and the future does look kind of promising in certain levels. And speaking of which, by the way, with the devs are people, so please don't direct any hate to them. If you say anything really mean to a dev on a personal level, like, it's way overstepping your boundaries. But yeah, like I was saying, the devs do seem pretty optimistic. I mean, hey, if they want to double the character roster in a year, that would definitely revive the game. But I'm extremely doubtful of that happening. I mean, if it happens, hey, that'd be amazing. And of course, with all this being said, Fraymakers was charging $20 on launch for 3.5 characters, a completely broken online, and just a ton of missing features, most of which are pretty crucial. Speaking of which, let's go through some of them. The current training mode is basically an excuse of a mode. It's just a CPU match where the CPU has no AI. You can't reset percents, you have to manually hit the CPU for assist charge, you can't turn off the HUD, no hitboxes yet, you can't slow it down. I mean, straight up, you just can't do anything in training mode. And hell, you can't even really do anything in normal matches either. Half of the features aren't even implemented. And I understand that, you know, they have priorities on what's more important to add, but it just feels so bare bones right now with the limitations. Also, speaking of bare bones, the CPU still play worse than I would play if I was blindfolded, which if you're a casual player, it's basically no challenge at all, it really is not very fun. The online, for some reason, still uses the rollback, which is definitely worse than the SSF2 delay base, which I didn't even know was possible. And I remember back in tester build, we had our concerns with the rollback, and I was reassured by the devs that, oh yeah, no, rollback is simple, they'll get it done, which was just extreme cap. I mean, I know Rivals didn't enter rollback open beta until 2021. Like, it works good sometimes, but it's so inconsistent that most players just use the delay base. Anyways, the last feature they're really missing that I feel like would be crucial is results screens. The games just end abruptly, there's no result screen at all, no match stats. I mean, the only way to save your replays is to go to the menu and this little button in the bottom, which I think half the player base didn't even know about. And then when you're watching the replays, the second it ends, it just goes straight back to the replay screen. There's no, like, result screen or match end screen. And if I'm being honest here, it's kind of embarrassing that the game is still in this state. I really genuinely believed 6 months ago that the game would be in a better state by this point, and a lot of these features would have been fixed. But yeah, this is where we're at, I guess. Clearly, the game isn't doing the best. My good friend Lou, into the Fray, is out here exploring abandoned military bases, trying to save Fraymakers.
We snuck into an abandoned military base to try and save an indie platform fighting game. The game is called Fraymakers, and its player count has been decreasing since launch.
He is one of the most dedicated Fraymakers fans of all time, and even he and many other community members I talked to agree that the game is just not in a good state right now. Which honestly sucks, because the game is really cool. Despite what the first half of this video probably made you think, I do actually enjoy Fraymakers a lot. Like, I've played the game so much, and I think there's a lot of cool things in the game. The gameplay, in my opinion, is phenomenal. It's incredibly fast and fun. The assist mechanic is really unique, and there's a lot of potential here. And in many ways, the game actually has improved since launch. I know that Octodad is now finally an actual character with animations, and there's been a plethora of other good balancing decisions that have made the game more fun to play, and there really has been some concrete progress in the past 6 months. It just hasn't been nearly enough, though, to convince people to play the game again. Because I don't blame anyone for quitting the game. A lot of the criticism and concerns I've seen are very valid. We could be in a worse spot. I mean, we're still getting more active players than games such as Rushdown Revolt, or even, God forbid, Brawlout. but it doesn't mean we're in a great spot either. The game is pretty much only active in the Discord. Outside of there, it's basically a wasteland. And really, until they add a little bit more substance to this game, it won't really fully realize its sort of goal of being the ultimate indie platform fighting game. And to reach that goal, I think there's 3 main pillars that the dev team needs to keep alive, which is first, the online and active player base, second, the base game content and rate of updates, and third is Fray tools and the custom content. First up is online. The online is bad. I know, crazy take. I talked about this earlier, but it's just incredibly poorly implemented. It's not quite as bad as, say, like 9B online back in 2015, but it's just not good either. It doesn't help that the quick play is very much dead, like it takes like 1 to 2 hours sometimes to find a match. And also the quick play uses the rollback, which for me and a lot of people is much worse than the delay base. I do know for some people the rollback actually works pretty good for them, but in my case, most random people I play with were better off playing with delayed. So I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the rollback currently. It also doesn't help that a lot of players like to play custom content online, like you can do in Rivals of Aether, and you can't do that in the quick play for Fraymakers right now. So a lot of players just can't even find matches. And lastly, the online is just missing a ton of quality of life issues. You can't see the players' regions, you can't accept or decline matches, you really can't find matches that you want to play in good connection. Even adding like these little like green, yellow, and red indicators that Rivals of Aether has, you know, it would go a long way. These small features help. But yeah, I do think the online really is hurting this game a lot. And I think, you know, online's hard to do. The dev team I know for Rivals had to add new people in to help with it. And I really do think that, you know, Fraymakers should consider, because SSF2 is notorious for having bad online, they should consider like really investing more time, money, or people into making a good online. Anyways, the second pillar is the base game content. It is no secret that this game just does not have enough content right now, straight up. Which is fine. I mean, again, it is improving that, and it is still early access. But it's just not enough to hold people over. Like, 4 characters is such a small amount, which I think the dev team knows as well. It feels like they're not really reaching their goals for content that they have for themselves. I know the game was delayed multiple times and it still kind of felt like it was rushed out when it released. So as an outside source, and again, I'm not a game developer, so I don't know the inside workings of their team or their financial situation, but I feel like they need more artists, because, you know, I love Ramsey, I love his animations, but if they have Ramsey doing every animation, this game's not going to be finished till 2045. I really do feel like adding 1 or 2 full-time artists to help getting some of the stages done and some of the assists done would really help, you know, let them focus on the characters, which would be great. Because again, it's no secret, the #1 way to revive this game is just to add more characters. Once we get character 5 and 6, which are Watcher and Fishbunjin, we'll start having character reveals, which will build more hype for the game, and just having more characters keeps people interested in the game. So yeah, that is by far the #1 thing the dev team can do to save this game: add characters. That does bring me to the last pillar, which is Fray tools. Fray tools is amazing, it is awesome, and by far, in my opinion, the best thing about Fraymakers. I know some people have their issues with Fray tools, but personally, I really loved it, I enjoyed it, I thought it was a great, like, user-friendly experience to get into modding. And the community has gone wild with it. There are some really cool custom stages. First of all, look at this clip. How is this Fraymakers? It is just so cool. But yeah, there's so many custom stages, custom characters, and like assists, and the community is just, you know, phenomenal. So I highly recommend, if you have not played Fraymakers since launch, or since like, you know, like January or February, give it another shot just for the custom content, if you're interested in that at least. The competitive side of Fraymakers is kind of dead, but the custom content aspect is still kind of thriving in the Discord. There's active people making new characters, new stages, and new content. So in my opinion right now, Team Fray is 1 for 3, which is not bad, but definitely not good. And the game really needs to get some more characters, some more base game content, and a better online. Those are the main things they need to do to save the game. And it is very likely I will make a video in January of next year called Fraymakers 1 Year Later. And in that video, hey, there's a chance I'll be saying the complete opposite about this game, saying it's a masterpiece. And yeah, I'm curious what you guys think as well. Have you been enjoying the game? Were you disappointed? What do you think? Because some of these opinions are probably controversial, and I'm sure I will get maybe some hate from some aspects about this, but yeah, overall, again, no hate to the developers. I like all of them individually. I think the dev team is really cool, but again, not a huge fan of the direction the game is going in. But yeah, that's my review, and thank you so much for watching.